Hello everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to explore one of the most important battles in history, the Battle of Hastings, fought in the year 1066. This was not just a clash between two armies. It was a turning point that forever changed England's future, language, culture, and system of government. So let's go back to the very beginning. By the year 1066, England was in a state of uncertainty. King Edward the Confessor had died without leaving an heir. Since he had no children, no one knew who should inherit the throne. This created a power struggle, and several powerful leaders believed they had the right to become the next King of England. The first candidate was Harold Godwinson, one of the most powerful nobles in England. The English council declared Harold the new king, and he was crowned shortly after Edward's death. However, not everyone accepted this decision. William, Duke of Normandy, claimed that Edward had promised him the English throne years earlier. William also insisted that Harold himself had once sworn to support his claim. When Harold accepted the crown instead, William considered it a betrayal and decided to take the throne by force. But William was not the only challenger. Harold Hardrada, the King of Norway and one of the last great Viking rulers, also claimed that he had a rightful claim to England. In September 1066, he invaded northern England with a massive Viking army. Harold Godwinson quickly marched north with his army and met the Vikings at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. After a fierce battle, Harold's forces won a decisive victory. Harold Hardrada was killed, bringing the Viking invasion to an end. However, Harold's soldiers had marched for days, fought a brutal battle, and were exhausted. Just as they celebrated their victory, another urgent message arrived. William had finally crossed the English Channel and landed on the southern coast of England. Without giving his army time to recover, Harold ordered another long march of nearly 300 kilometers back to the south. His men were tired, but Harold knew he couldn't afford to wait. Every day William remained in England made his position stronger. On the morning of October 14th, 1066, the two armies met near Hastings on a ridge known as Senlac Hill. Harold commanded around 7,000 to 8,000 soldiers. Most of his army consisted of infantry, including the elite housecarls, who fought with massive two-handed battle axes. The English had almost no cavalry, so they chose to defend the high ground. They formed the famous shield wall, standing shoulder to shoulder with their shields locked together to create an almost impenetrable defensive line. William also had an army of around 7,000 to 8,000 men. Unlike Harold's forces, the Norman army included skilled archers, infantry, and heavily armored cavalry, considered among the finest in Europe. William divided his army into three sections: Bretons on the left flank, Normans in the center, and French and Flemish troops on the right. The battle began in the morning with a volley of arrows from the Norman archers. However, because the English occupied the higher ground, many arrows either missed their targets or struck the English shields without causing significant damage. Next came the Norman infantry. Fierce hand-to-hand fighting broke out as they attempted to break through the shield wall. The English housecarls used their heavy axes with devastating effect, inflicting heavy casualties on the attacking Normans. For hours the shield wall held firm. William then committed his powerful cavalry to the attack. Armored knights charged uphill toward the English line, but the steep slope and the strength of the shield wall made their attacks ineffective. The Norman cavalry was forced to retreat. As the battle continued, parts of the Norman army began to panic and fall back. Some soldiers even believed William had been killed. To restore morale, William rode forward, removed his helmet, and showed his face to his troops, proving that he was still alive. His soldiers regained confidence and continued fighting. William then used one of the battle's most famous tactics. His troops pretended to retreat from the battlefield. Believing the enemy was fleeing, some English soldiers broke formation and chased after them. At that moment, the Norman cavalry turned around and launched a surprise counterattack, surrounding and killing many of the English pursuers. This tactic was repeated several times throughout the day. Each time, more English soldiers left the shield wall, gradually weakening Harold's defensive position. Later in the afternoon, William gave his archers a new order. Instead of shooting directly at the enemy, they were told to fire their arrows high into the air. The arrows began falling behind the English shields. According to tradition, one of these arrows struck King Harold in the eye. However, modern historians are not certain this actually happened. Some sources instead claim that Harold was later cut down by Norman knights during the final assault. Harold's death marked the turning point of the battle. Without their king, the English army lost its organization and morale. The Norman forces finally broke through the weakened shield wall, and the remaining English soldiers began to retreat. By the evening, the Battle of Hastings was over. William had achieved a decisive victory. A few months later, William entered London, and on December 25th, 1066, he was crowned King of England at Westminster Abbey. From that day forward, history remembered him as William the Conqueror. The Norman victory transformed England forever. Norman nobles took control of English lands. Hundreds of stone castles were built across the country, and French became the language of the ruling class. Thousands of French words entered the English language, shaping the English we know today. William also ordered the creation of the famous Domesday Book, a detailed survey of England's population, land, and wealth. Today, historians consider the Battle of Hastings one of the most significant events in English history. It changed not only the country's ruler, but also its identity, government, culture, and language. Had Harold won that day, England and perhaps even the modern English-speaking world might have looked very different. And that is the story of the Battle of Hastings in 1066. Although the battle lasted only a single day, its impact shaped England for centuries and remains one of history's greatest turning points.